Hi, so I decided to do a little solo project here on this channel. It's been a while since Adventure Time ended, and I really wanted to do it justice. I've always meant to do this. This is my personal top 10 Adventure Time episodes. Number 10, Don't Look. Don't Look was a really touching story about Finn and his maturity. That's a common theme on this list. It was about him getting cursed eyes that would transform people into how he metaphorically saw them. Getting a nice look into Finn's psyche was a very unique episode, and it led to some of the better ones later down the road in seasons. Number 9 on my list is Flute Spell. Flute Spell introduced Huntress Wizard. She was a real nice addition to the cast, and she stuck around for the end of the show, which was something I didn't think would happen. She was a real foil to Finn in showing his maturity along the path. She was like his first healthy relationship. Somewhat last, one might say, through the end of the season, but we still don't really get a good conclusion on Finn and her. But I like to think that in the end of the Come Along With Me special, just seeing her once was good enough. Number 8 is one that I don't hear a lot of people talking about, and that one's called Catch Up. This episode was towards the end of the season, and I feel like the reason they had this episode was just because they wanted to do a BMO and Marceline episode. And really, they just had to squeeze it in at the last minute. But it did some very important things that I don't hear people talking about. Not only did it mention all 3 of the miniseries, Stakes, Islands, and Elementals, but it also gave Marceline a little bit of closure on her mother, which I don't know why no one talked about this episode more when it came out. And it even included the animators of Batman and Pirate Man for a little bit during the story sequences, which was really nice. Like, all those combined, I would thought more people would like this episode. Number 7 is Hall of Egress. This was just such a beautifully and well done one-off episode. It was about Finn going blind, kind of, and him trying to adapt to this new situation. Throughout the episode, he was cursed, and it's about him developing new skills and growing bigger as a person. The cycle in which he keeps coming back and returning to the temple was also really, dark and almost twisted, but Finn stayed strong through it and was able to overcome this challenge. I thought it was just a well done story and episode. Next, number 6 is Jake the Prick. This is just an ASMR in a nutshell, a really well done episode. John DiMaggio really brought a lot to the table with this episode, showing what he can do with just narration, and you could tell everyone in the Land of Ooo loved it as much as I did. Bad Little Boy was the best Fiona episode, and it gets number 5 on my list. Donald Glover as Marshall Lee was just really phenomenal, and I loved every song from this episode. Sometimes Adventure Time songs are a little hit and miss, but these were all really well done. Number 4, Pajama War. I could not stop laughing at this episode the first time I saw it, and it gave a little bit of breathing room for all the stuff that's been happening in the series so far. It gave us a little bit of insight on how Princess Bubblegum was growing as a person too. We really don't get a lot of those episodes, and we see her just hanging around with Finn, and not a romantic way. They just were going back to being friends, and that's something the show really needed to ground itself. Crunchies and Starchies and everyone's whole battle for being the new princess and the candy people just being dumb, that was so much fun. And I love how Jake was all Snapchatting it and sending it to Finn. Finn and Bubblegum knew the whole episode that they were going a little nuts, but they decided to let the candy people just off the leash for a little while. And we got to see what they were capable of if just running free. Okay, top 3. Now, number 3 is kind of a cheat though. I decided to lump all the Stakes miniseries together. They're all one united thing. And, well, to pick one out of the lot would be pretty hard. But the Stakes was probably my favorite miniseries in Adventure Time. The whole vampire thing with Marceline, all the way down to her doing that magical girl transformation in the end, was so much fun. The Vampire King was a real, takeaway character too. I very much liked him. It was Adventure Time's first miniseries as well, which really, there was a lot on the line, them proving they could do a good job with a real tight storyline with this, and they proved themselves that they could. In the end, who doesn't love Marceline? Okay, number two. Number two was what was missing. It was one of the first real strong Adventure Time episodes, one of the first ones to imply that Marceline and Bubblegum would be a little more. It had the two best songs of the entire series. I know I talked a little bit about songs before, but What Am I to You and Marceline's song, which was I'm Just Your Problem, were so spectacular. I know I sometimes start humming that song, and that song came out years ago in that episode. Now, I'd like to give my number one, I Remember You. This was the song that really cemented Adventure Time in history. It was the one that really confirmed that Marcy and Simon, the Ice King, had a long tragic history, which was always omnipresent in Adventure Time. There was always a dark undertone, which really attracted people to the show, that it was like a post-apocalyptic magical future. That was always just nagging at the background. This episode really brought it front and center and showed that the outcome and repercussions of having such a setting. Ice King being so tortured really just made everything make sense, and how he's always after princesses. This was the one episode that really just put everything together and cemented Adventure Time's spot in one of the greatest, not just Cartoon Network shows of all time, but cartoons in general. This show it was a renaissance, Adventure Time. It brought so many people back to animation and to Cartoon Network. I still can't believe Nickelodeon passed on it for Fanboy and Chum Chum. Like, my god. Adventure Time, it's been almost a whole year, if not more, by the time I get this out. But I miss you, Finn and Jake, and I know the world will never be the same since you guys entered it. Thank you, Pendleton.